Shalom. This is Adasabasai 1, returning with the 3 days of darkness. And this is part 3 continued. This is to continue on with the previous study. And this portion is called the defilement in the darkness. Now, before we get started, because this study is going to bridge parts 1 and 2 to parts 4 and 5 that I have already completed. Parts 1, 2, and 3, that I have previously done, and parts 4 and 5 that I've completed, but I have to do this part, a second part to part 3, to bridge the 5 together. And you will see what I'm speaking of. As things are revealed to me, then the picture becomes clearer and clearer as to what this 3 days of darkness is all about. It's like investigating the second Exodus. It's like when he gives us revelation about the chariots and who is going into the Exodus and who's going into the chariots. More and more as the revelation is given to us, clearer and clearer we see the big picture. And that's what it's all about. Being able to see with spiritual eyes and to hear with spiritual ears and understand with our hearts exactly what it is that we need to see, hear, and understand. And it's not going to happen in one go. Okay, let's think about a prophet called Danayal. Danayal was given prophecy about the end times. Did Allah give it to him in one session, in one vision? No. He gave him a series of visions. Same thing with Yawachanan, the apostle. He was given a series of visions. And this is what Allah does. He gives us enough for us to go on and to build. And he will build upon that as we receive and understand it. Now he's ready to release more information. So, before we get started, let me just clarify a few things that was addressed, especially in part 3. When the 3 days of darkness begin, as we have discussed before, and we've looked at parables where Hamashiach explained that if you can tell what weather you're having based on what you see happening in the sky, you should be able to discern the times. You should be able to discern what is coming based on what is going on around you. Based on what is going on around us, me included. All right? We can't base what is going on around us on what other people are saying. For example, the weatherman will say today is going to be beautiful weather, but when you go outside, there are clouds, dark, heavy clouds in the sky. So who are you going to believe? Are you going to believe your eyes? Are you going to believe what the weatherman is saying? Okay. So we are going to be able to discern when the darkness is coming based on the portents in the heavens and on the earth. You're going to see things happening around us, especially the southern kingdom. I've said this before. All right? When you see the escalation of the persecution for the southern kingdom, when you see things start escalating for the Negroes in America and Canada and UK and wherever in the Caribbean as well, when you see things being dropped upon them to press them and oppress them, to force us, because I'm part of that too, to force us to submit to the powers that be that are running this world. Then start to watch. In fact, you don't even need to wait for that to happen. Be watching right now. But I'm just saying, this will be a clear signal that the 3 days of darkness are coming. Also, pay attention to what is going on in the heavenlies, because there'll be signs in the heavenlies and there'll be signs on the earth, not just about the persecution of the southern kingdom, but also too, there are going to be some phenomenal things happening on the earth that no one will be able to explain. Why is the sea behaving this way? What are these noises that we're hearing? What's going on? There are going to be unusual things happening in the heavens and on the earth to allow us to know that something is coming. And on top of that, we will have Ruach HaKodesh that will help us to understand what it is that we're seeing and what is coming. He will tell us. Just like, and I'm using myself as an example, when things began to happen in March of 2020, the year 2020, it was Ruach HaKodesh that told me what was happening and what was going to happen and what else is coming. He told me it all. Well, he's been teaching me for years about all the different things that are happening in secret. It didn't come as a surprise. The surprising part for me was how quickly it was rolled out. That was the surprise for me. All right? But these actual events that are happening were not a surprise to me. I was like, what? Already? Just like that? Yeah. You should know what I'm talking about. You know, the lockdowns and whatnot. Yeah. Okay. So, Ruach HaKodesh, he will be with us to tell us what is going on. Why? Because we're watching and we're praying and we're in the know. We know something is coming and we're watching for it. But once the darkness descends, then everything is going to go still. And we're going to look at that as we carry on in our studies. Before the darkness comes, there will be signs in the heavens and on the earth, plus the sign of the persecution of the southern kingdom, because the 3 days of darkness is to paralyze the devils that be from persecuting us. Just like the great earthquake that will come in the sixth seal will bring a sudden halt to the NWO, Seventh Empire, when they war against the northern kingdom. This is what Allah Hayam will do to preserve his righteous remnant. All right? He also wants us to know, and that's why he said we need to discern the times. We have to learn to discern, and that's why he doesn't come and tell us everything all at once, because he wants us to sharpen our discernment. That's a skill. All right? Based on the knowledge that he's given to us and the understanding. Once we have the understanding, then we are able to discern what is going on. And this is all spiritual qualities, his spiritual qualities that he gives to us so that we can survive on this earth. How else can we survive in this world of darkness? Not talking about the 3 days of darkness. I'm talking about the evil darkness that's in this world, the wickedness. All right. So knowing this, going on as we continue on with the next few studies, we're going to understand clear exactly what we're talking about, whereas the portents and the signs and all these things are happening, and then the darkness, when it descends, how it will engulf everything. We're going to look at that, as a matter of fact, in this study. Second thing that I want to address. Now, there'll be darkness everywhere. In the homes, outside the homes, in the closets, under your bed, everywhere on this earth, the darkness will seep in. There'll be nothing that you can do to keep it out. However, for the southern kingdom, the righteous remnant, who will be getting themselves ready to be regathered, they will have light in their homes. And as we continue on with the studies, we're going to investigate what this light is, where it's coming from, because it's not coming from the light bulb. Allah is going to call forth his light out of Hashak, the darkness. And that is the light that will be in the homes of everyone who is of the southern kingdom, the righteous remnant. That is not every home, only those who are of the southern kingdom, and they're the righteous remnant that will be regathered. All their homes will be light, will have light. Now, in saying that, I also want to say this. Because they have light, they're able to move around. They're able to continue on their lives inside the home because there's darkness outside. But because of what is happening, because of the darkness, and we will know that it is the 3 days of darkness, they will have no desire to do anything but worship. I'm not sure how or when or what point of time this will occur. We're never given the day nor the hour for his events. We know that they're going to happen. We just need to watch for the signs. However, I do know this, the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom, they'll be at home. And I discussed this in part 5 of this series. They will be at home. What will they be doing? Whether they're making a meal or sitting down having a meal or they're resting. Let this be known that whatever meal they have already eaten or getting ready to eat will be the last meal that they will eat for the 3 days and 3 nights. It will be the last meal that they will consume for the 3 days and 3 nights. All right, and we will discuss that in part 4. So there'll not be a time for them to just sit around and put their feet up and, or be afraid or, there's none of that. This will be a glorious time for the remnant because they will know exactly what to do during these 3 days. And the last thing that they care about at this point in time is eating and drinking. This is the problem with our people. All they want to do is eat and drink. All they ever want to think about is food. All right. This is the issue with our people. If you doubt me, go back to the first, I would say, Exodus, Shamawath, when our forefathers came out of Goshen and they encountered some difficulty. And the first thing they remembered, the food that they had in Matzarayah. They didn't remember the persecution, but they remembered the food. And this is the trend of our people, the trend of us people. Always about food. However, those that belong to Al-Hayam will care they will not care about what to eat or what to drink during these 3 days. It's the last thing that will be on their minds. The first thing on their mind will be to worship. All right? This will be a time for pure worship. And I will go into greater detail in parts 4 and parts 4 and 5. I just want to touch on some things here to try to bridge the 5 studies together. All right? So that you keep this at the back of your mind. Another thing that I want to address, even though the 3 days of darkness is a twofold judgment set against the southern kingdom, where this is their final sifting. In fact, the sifting would have been completed, and this will be a time of preparation for the remnant that will be leaving, and it will be a time of destruction for the rebels of the southern kingdom. My idea for this entire study was to focus on the southern kingdom, just like I focused on the northern kingdom and when they will be regathered. My intention was to focus on the southern kingdom. However, this 3 days of darkness is going to affect everyone and everything. It will have an impact on everything, including the devils and the demons. Everything will be paralyzed except the remnant. Also, to understand that there will be side effects to the 3 days of darkness. Positive for the remnant, definitely not positive for the others. And we're going to look at that in this particular study. It will have an effect. It's going to be 3 days and 3 nights that people can't do anything, including feeding themselves. What do you think is going to happen? All right. So I wanted to clear that up, that it is not just a matter of you sitting in darkness and waiting for it to disappear, and then life will go back to normal. No, because right after the 3 days of darkness are completed, then Hamashiach is coming in the clouds, and he's coming in his own light. He's coming in his glory to regather the remnant. And then after he is gone, then the sun, the moon, and the stars will come back again. But it will not be a happy occasion for the inhabitants on the earth. And one other thing that I want to say is that when Hamashiach comes, just like when the darkness came, before the darkness came, there were portents in the heavens and the earth. And then once the darkness comes, that clears up. Then it becomes absolutely Still, when Hamashiach is getting ready to come, there are going to be portents again. There's going to be the shaking and um, the sea roaring. All those different things are going to happen again. All right? So it happened before the 3 days of darkness came. And when the 3 days of darkness are completed, it's going to happen again. And that will usher in Hamashiach coming down from heaven to the earth to regather his people. Anytime Allah Hayam Yahweh or Allah Hayam Hamashiach comes to the earth, they come with shaking of the heavens and the earth. And loud trumpet and all these different things happen. They're entering into our dimension. Power, glory is entering into our dimension. So, yes, of course, his creation will shake. There will be an uproar. The King of Glory is coming. Okay, so let's get started and learn more about this 3 days of darkness. Whenever I think that I'm completed with this study, then he brings more stuff, more and more information. And like I said to you from the very beginning, this is not the end. There's always more to learn because a lot of our books, history, even the Bible have been either destroyed or tampered with or hidden. And so we have limited information about the end time events that are coming. However, we have Ruach HaKadosh, and that's why Hamashiach, when he left, he sent him. Because we need the spirit of truth, Ruach Olamath, to help us in these, especially in these last days. He fills in the gaps that are missing. And he helps us to understand what is to come. Now, the 3 days of darkness event that is coming is so phenomenal that it is impossible to cover it in just a few studies. I know I've done 3 studies. In fact, it was supposed to be just 1 study, and then it became 3, and now it is about 6 studies. This one and 2 more that I've already completed. As we complete one aspect of this event, other aspects will be revealed, all by divine design. Hamashiach spoke to his disciples, revealing just the basic things because they were unable to bear the fullness of his divine knowledge. You see, that's the reason why Allah Hayam does not give us all of his knowledge all at once. It is not possible for our limited brain capacity to be able to handle the depth and the width and the height of his knowledge. So he gives it to us and we grow in order to absorb more. So it's almost like and it's a form of maturity as well. So as he gives us, we're growing in order to have more room to take in more knowledge. All right? So that's why he gives it to us in portions. So when they, speaking of his disciples, when they were filled with Ruach HaKadosh, then they were able to handle such knowledge, as they were not walking merely like men in the flesh, but men filled with power from on high. So when Hamashiach was with his disciples, he taught them the mysteries, the parables of the kingdom of heaven and other truths. However, a lot of it they did not understand. Some of it they did because it, what he was teaching them or what he did was a fulfillment of a prophecy that they knew about. And and it came to them as understanding. They were able to understand that, hey, he just fulfilled this prophecy. That's why sometimes you see a recollection of a prophecy that was spoken by one of the prophets of old being quoted. All right? But for the most part, his disciples could not wrap their brains around the knowledge that he gave to them. That's why he said, I will send you the Comforter and all the things that I have taught you. He's going to bring them into remembrance and he's going to teach you all things. Because he understood that they're just flesh. They were not filled with the power from on high yet. And it is that power that helps us to be able to embrace the truth and absorb it. You think your natural mind can absorb divine knowledge? Impossible. Impossible. We need to be filled with Ruach HaKodesh and walking in power and in the truth in order to embrace the truth. How could you be darkness? How could anyone be darkness try to embrace the truth? It's not going to work. It's like water and oil. They repel each other. In fact, the truth would destroy the darkness. So the darkness doesn't come near the truth. And that's why people that are walking in darkness, they don't want to hear the truth. So let's look at Yochanan chapter 16, verse 12. I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now. So this is Hamashiach speaking to his apostles. Actually, they were his disciples first, and then they became his apostles when he sent them out with his power and his instructions, his knowledge, his truth. So he said, I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now. Howbeit, when he, Haruach Olamath, that's the Spirit of truth, is come, he will guide you into all Amath, all truth. For he shall not speak of himself, but whatsoever he shall hear, that shall he speak, and he will show you things to come. This is the role of Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach Olamath, the Spirit of truth, to reveal to us things to come, the future, the prophecies, the mysteries, the parables. This is what he is here to do. Verse 14, he shall glorify me, for he shall receive of mine and shall show it unto you. All things that Abba have are mine. Therefore said I that he shall take of mine and shall show it unto you. So everything that was given to the Son, Hamashiach, from the Father, he also has instructed Ruach Olamath to pass it on to us. It is by the power from on high given to us through Ruach HaKodesh that we're able to discern, see, hear, understand, and perceive spiritual mysteries. Now, when I say see, hear, and understand and perceive, you're talking, these are spiritual qualities, divine qualities, spiritual eyes to see, spiritual ears to hear. Your heart is made of flesh and circumcised, so now you can understand and perceive spiritual mysteries that are too high for our natural brains to comprehend. You see, us walking in this body of flesh cannot comprehend spiritual things. We can understand physical things, natural things. We can understand logic. But we cannot understand in this body spiritual things, the mysteries, divine knowledge. We have to be walking in the spirit to understand spiritual things. It goes beyond logic and even our experiences to understand these mysteries, which come in the form of parables and prophecies. And that's why many of our brethren who do not have Ruach HaKodesh as their comforter, as their guide, as their teacher, they're resorting to other means to understand the prophecies. And those other means will draw them into the darkness where the devils are, far away from the light and the truth, which is the truth. It is for this reason why Allah Hayam revealed His truth according to our spiritual maturity and according to our willingness to submit to His truth. Now you might be asking, so what does this have to do with the 3 days of darkness? I'm trying to lay a foundation here for us to understand that you cannot grasp, you cannot wrap your brain around prophecies, you cannot wrap your brain around the mysteries of Allah Hayam unless you're walking in spirit and in truth. And if you are walking in spirit and in truth, then Allah Hayam will teach you, will instruct you, will help you to understand what is coming. That's why we have to have this understanding of His divine knowledge. It's not only about jumping into the meat of the matter, to get with it, to get on with it, because you're not going to understand. And at least if you realize that you're lacking understanding, then you can pray and ask Him to give you understanding. He said if you pray and ask for wisdom, He'll give it to you liberally. He will not upbraid not. He's not going to withhold anything from us if we pray and ask for it. Prophecy is not easy to embrace. The things that you're hearing other people talking about that sounds sweet to our ears are usually teachings that are in error. They are in error. Why? Because the ones that are teaching, are not being led by Ruach HaKodesh with the truth. And that's why many people will embrace, for example, the rapture. Even some of our brethren are waiting for a rapture. Many of our brethren are waiting to be going into a wilderness for the second Exodus, the 12 tribes. These are all prophecies that have been mistaught, that are being taught in error, in other words. Because the ones that are teaching, they do not understand because they don't have Ruach HaKodesh teaching them. It's almost like they hear what other people are saying and they jump on the bandwagon and say, well, that sounds good. Let me start teaching on YouTube. And they go out there and they start teaching the same things that other people are teaching. And sometimes they go way, way, way off course because they have to come with a twist. They have to have some new insight. So if they're already started on the wrong path, that new insight isn't coming from Ruach HaKodesh. And that's why we have some of our brethren, they're going to other books and what have you to get information. But what Ruach HaKodesh does, he gives us revelation. His divine knowledge. Don't worry, we're going to get into the defilement in a minute. All right? I just need to lay this down. I need to lay this down. You got people talking about the 3 days of darkness, but they're using the prophecy, the so-called prophecy, because it's not a prophecy. You cannot prophesy a prophecy that's already been prophesied by another prophet of Allah. That's just not right. It is wrong on every level. If you want to teach the revelation of the prophecy, that's another thing. But you can't say you have a prophecy and it was done eons ago, thousands of years ago. It was prophesied thousands of years ago. Impossible. That is not a prophecy. See, that's the problem too with people. Everything is a prophecy. Excuse me. Everything becomes a prophecy. All right? Because people do not understand what prophecy is. Prophecy has nothing to do with us personally. It is all about Allah revealing something to his people. All right? But people take their dreams and they call it prophecy. Or they call it a vision from God, their gods. And then they try to break it down and try to squeeze it in to match whatever scripture is there, because they got to go and tailor cut the scripture to make it fit what they're saying. They twist it and they turn it, contort it. I've seen this happening. They do that with the 144,000 as well. And that's why I'm saying to you that these prophecies, all the prophecies that Allah has given, all that is needed now is for the revelation, especially for the ones pertaining to the end times. That's why we don't need prophets anymore. We don't need prophets. The last great prophet that we had was Yohanan the Baptizer. He was the last of the great prophets. Yohanan the Apostle, he was a messenger. So yes, he received the vision and he also received the prophecy. But he was an apostle. So he can move in the realm of the prophetic and the apostolic. And even as a teacher. All right, he can move in those realms because he was, what's the word I'm looking for? He was the eyewitness. He was an eyewitness of Hamashiach. He was his disciple. And when Hamashiach left, not only did he send Ruach HaKodesh to be their comforter and teacher and their guide, but he also gave them a portion of his power to continue his work on the earth, to write the Gospels, for us today. They walked in a portion of his power. And that's why they're called apostles. And for this matter, we don't need apostles anymore. So anyone walking around calling themselves apostles, they are false apostles. We don't need apostles anymore. These apostles had specific duties to do, and those duties have been done. You don't need apostles anymore, like we don't need prophets anymore. All right, let me carry on with the word here. So it is for this reason why Allah Hayam reveal His truth according to our spiritual maturity and according to our willingness to submit to His truth. When we show ourselves responsible in handling His truth, then He gives more and more. He does not give that which is precious to dogs or swine, only to His own who are called by His name, and those are the obedient ones. Because there's some of our brethren, you can call them dogs and you can call them swine because they behave as such. All right. Matthew chapter 6 verse 6, give not that which is holy unto the dogs, neither cast your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you. They turn again and rip you apart. You trying to minister to someone that the Father didn't send you to? It doesn't matter if they look Negro. How do you know they're Negro? How do you know they're of our lineage just because they look black? You think every black person on this earth is of the 12 tribes of Yashua? No. We got Edomites that look like us. We got Canaanites that look like us. We got all people from different nations that look like us. But you running around because every dark-skinned person got to be from the 12 tribes. And that's the mistake that a lot of people are making. And so they're casting that which is holy to these people, which is His word. You're trying to preach the truth to these people, and all they're going to do is trample it under their feet, and then they're going to turn around and rip you apart. You got the ones at the corner there with the bullhorns and everything doing the same thing. I mean, some of them, if they don't get a favorable response, then they get offensive. Matthew chapter 15, verse 25, then came she and worshipped him, saying, Adawan, help me. Now this is the Canaanite woman. But he answered and said, it is not meet to take the children's bread, which is his word, and to cast it to dogs. So he's comparing her to a dog. Why? Because she's outside the lineage of the 12 tribes. She's not one of the children. Verse 27. And she said, truth, Adawan. I mean, woman, accept the truth. She said, it is true. I'm a dog. I'm a dog. And I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a dog. Right? Right? You got some of the Gentiles out there that want to make themselves like prince and princesses. They don't realize that they're dogs. If you're a Gentile, listen, Yashraal, or those of Yashraal descent, when they were walking, anyone that's been walking as a Gentile, they are like dogs. All right? Dogs. So only when we come into the knowledge of who we are and we repent and we return to Allah Hayam, then we change from that. We are transformed from dogs to His children. We are transformed. And the woman says, true, I'm a dog. Yet the dogs eat of the crumbs which fall from their master's table. She said, I'm so desperate. Listen, I accept the fact that I am a dog. And whatever you got for me, I will gladly take it, even if it's crumbs. Yes, crumbs do have to fall from the table. Have you ever seen anyone eating bread and not see a crumb fall from the table? well, I'll be willing and happy to go and lick that crumb up. So if you got a crumb from me, I beg you, I want it. All right, verse 28. Then Yahushua answered and said unto her, O woman, great is your faith. Be it unto you even as you will. And her daughter was made whole from that very hour. The woman was so desperate. She knew who he was. She knew he possessed the power to help her daughter. And the woman was walking in truth. She understood who she was, and she also understood who he was. And the woman was willing to take, even if it's a crumb, a drop in a bucket. But she first acknowledged who she is or who she was. We come before Allah Hayam professing that we are Hebrew Israelites. We don't even humble ourselves before Him to repent for all the vile things that we have done and to ask for His forgiveness. But many of our people come before Him with a lot of pride. Yes, our forefathers did this, this, and that, but that's not us today. That's not true. We're worse than our forefathers today. That's why we're in the state that we're in today. We're worse. All right? So anyone thinking that they're proud, they're walking around with such pride, and that's why they walk with their chest all pumped up and they're looking like they're big and bad in their costumes and whatnot. I'm like, brother, hey, deflate that chest and fall on your face and pray and ask the Father for forgiveness and pray that you're found worthy to enter into His kingdom. You think because you got a title that is sufficient, that's your passport into the kingdom? Look what happened to our forefathers in the wilderness. They knew who they were. Did they make it into the kingdom? I can tell you right now, no, they did not. A lot of them didn't. Few did, but not a lot. There were a miserable bunch of people. And our people today is the same way. We walk in our forefathers' footsteps. All right, let's move on. This may sound like a very harsh word from Hamashiach to the Canaanite woman. You know, some people will get offended, like, who you calling a dog? Who you calling a dog? All right? Just like the Pharisees. The Pharisees get easily offended. But not this woman. This woman was only looking for healing for her daughter who was possessed with a devil. But Hamashiach was merciful in His response to her because He came to set the captives of our people free. Yet in the end, due to the faith of this woman, He healed her daughter. And that's why I said in one of my studies, I believe it's in either part 5 of this study, that at the end of the day, the Father right now, as I'm speaking, He is dealing with us and our faith. He is wanting to build our faith in Him. Because when these things begin to happen, it's only because of faith that we will remain as we are, worshiping Him. Right? The quickest thing our people love to do is surrender their rights, surrender themselves for the sake of a loaf of bread. Their livelihoods get threatened, and what do? They submit. And Allah Hayya is saying to you, if you try to hold on to your things and try to hold on to me, it's not going to work. You cannot serve two masters. You got to let go of one in order to serve the other. Either you will love one and you will hate the other. So stop fooling yourselves and thinking that, okay, well, I can do both. You can't do both. You can't serve two masters. You can't pretend that um, you are walking in obedience to Allah Hayam, that you are, well, you say that you're a Hebrew Israelite, or whatever the other crazy titles that they call themselves out there, all right? And yet you're walking in disobedience to his commandments. You're not keeping his Shabbat on his day. You're calling on pagan gods. All these different things will prove whether or not you're his or not. And it takes faith to discard the things that you think you know, to embrace the things that you really don't know. To believe by faith that what he's saying to you is the truth. It takes faith. Faith is not something tangible. Oh, if you give me proof that then I'll believe it. No, that's not faith then. If Al-Hayam has to give you proof, then that's not faith. So due to the faith of this woman, he healed her daughter. Hamashai extended his power to heal even the Gentiles in his time. But this was limited to only those who had faith to believe in him, just like the centurion, the Roman centurion, who sent his servant, or I'm trying to remember if he sent a servant or he himself came. One or the other, right? But in the end, because Hamashai said, okay, I'm going to come. Actually, the centurion came to him. Like sometimes my brain. All right. The centurion came to him because his servant was ill. And Hamashai said, okay, I will come with you to your house to heal your servant. And the centurion said, no, 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 no. I'm not worthy to have you under my roof. Right? He said, just say the word and I know that my servant will be healed, because I'm a man of authority. When I say to my servants to do this, they do that, they do it. And if I tell them to do that, they do that. He said, all you have to do is say the word and I believe that my servant will be healed. And Hamashai said, I have not found such great a faith, not even amongst our people, that this centurion had. That's what I'm saying. A remnant of the Gentiles are coming in with us, whether we like it or not. Some of them got more faith than our own brethren. All right. And Hamashai marveled at this centurion. And right away, the servant was healed. All right. It is the same. It is the same for all of Yashraal, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. We must believe in Hamashiach in order to receive the bread that he has for us. A lot of our people want the bread, but they don't want to believe. They want the sweeties, but they don't want to worship the person who is the creator of those sweeties. When I say sweeties, I'm talking about our inheritance, the sweet stuff. They want the inheritance, but they don't want to walk in obedience. They just want to receive, and that's it. But that's not the way how Allah Hayam is going to do it. That's why he's sifting us and sifting us to remove the chaff that's in our midst. Any brethren that are still walking as Gentiles will not receive from him. When we receive from Hamashiach and we embrace his truth and walk in it, then he will lead us to more truth through his Ruach. This is our responsibility. The one main thing required for us to do. If we do not believe in Hamashiach and the words that he spoke, then we will be led away from him and his truth, which is our light. And he is our only source of true light. He said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. But he's also the light, which is the life of men. And when we reject Hamashiach, we are rejecting the truth. We're rejecting the life because he is the truth. It will lead us into despair and finally destruction eternally. All right. Matthew chapter 13, verse 11. He answered and said unto them, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it is not given. All right. Verse 12. I think we read this before. For whosoever has, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. So whosoever has, what is he talking about? The truth. That's why he started out the statement by saying, because it is given unto you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but unto them, the multitudes that followed him, it is not given. The truth. So whoever has the truth, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance of truth. So he starts us off with a portion of truth, and then he starts to multiply it. It starts to grow and blossom as we begin to grow and blossom. We cannot contain his divine knowledge, his truth in this finite brain that we have. We have to be walking in spirit and in truth. But whosoever has not, from him shall be taken away even that he has. So whoever does not have the truth, okay. So either you have the truth or you don't have the truth. If you have the truth, more truth will be given to you. More knowledge is going to be given to you. But if you don't have any knowledge, and you're calling the book stuff the stuff that you're getting from the books, knowledge, but whoever does not have his divine knowledge, from him shall be taken away even that he has. And what do you have that, if you don't have any truth, what else do you have? What else does a person have that can be taken away? His life. His life. So if you don't have the truth and you're walking in darkness, the next step is to have your life taken away, destroyed. Now, when it comes to understanding the 3 days of darkness, I've done a nice lengthy introduction. So now we're into the 3 days of darkness. It is not just one gulp and that is it. No, it cannot be one gulp. This stuff is it is multifaceted. There's so many different aspects to it. I was taken off guard. I was like, what? More stuff? Yes, there's more stuff. There's more to understand. There's so much wrapped up in this event that it will take time to unpack all of its significance. We have discussed the definition of darkness, which is Hashak. Then we looked at who the 3 days of darkness are really meant for and why. We discovered that it will be a twofold judgment set against the southern kingdom, specifically where the righteous remnant will have light, while the rebels of the southern kingdom will have to endure the darkness with its torments and then death. We also know that all the other inhabitants on the earth will be paralyzed by the darkness, as the darkness itself will penetrate every nook and cranny inside the homes and buildings, as well as outside, of course. We have been concerned mainly about the southern kingdom, the righteous remnant, and how they will be affected, and the rebels and how they will be affected. So we were, like I said before, my purpose of doing this study was to see how the 3 days of darkness would affect the southern kingdom, because it has to do with the southern kingdom. But now the understanding has been expanded to for us to see how it's going to affect even those of non-Yashrael descent. All right, all the side effects for everyone and everything. It's not limited to just us. And yeah, don't worry about the other people, right? But this is an understanding that those of the Gentiles, if they understand what's going on, then they can do their due diligence and hang in there, repent. If you want a portion of our inheritance, you got to repent and you got to hang in there. Those of the northern kingdom, you got to repent and you got to hang in there, because they're going to go through some serious stuff too, because they're just like Gentiles. All right. We even consider the fate of the northern kingdom at this time, but now we must consider how the rest of the world will be affected by the 3 days of darkness, as a way to provoke any of our northern kingdom brethren to righteousness, so that they will be spared eternal destruction. And when I say that, I mean that at the ending of this event, prophetic event, that if they do not return to Allah Hayam and worship Him and Him alone, and cast away the pagan gods and the pagan worship that they've been doing, that they've been worshiping, well, the pagan gods that they've been worshiping, all the different pagan things that they were doing, all the sacrifices, what have you, all the things that they were doing that were for gods, idols. If they do not repent of this and return to Allah Hayam, they are going to be destroyed. All right, they're going to be destroyed, not in the 3 days of darkness, because the 3 days of darkness is going to be a trigger for them to be awakened. And once they're awakened, they'll be faced with the same choice that we have, either to receive the light or not. Receive the light and walk in the light, or not, you walk on in darkness until you're destroyed. So this is the way that the 3 days of darkness is going to provoke the northern kingdom. And as I've said before, and I'll say it again, once the 3 days of darkness begin, the fate of the southern kingdom is sealed. There's going to be an immediate separation. The righteous remnant will have the light, and those that are not of that group, which will be the rebels, they will be the rebels. They will endure the torments in the darkness and eventually death. Father is cleaning house. So, but let us reflect again on what we do know, which we have spoken about already. The righteous remnant of the southern kingdom will not be negatively impacted by the 3 days of darkness. We will see in the next 2 studies how they will be prepared for the regathering during this time. It is also important to note that this event will trigger an involuntary fast for the duration of that time. So yes, they can eat and they can drink because they have light to see. All right? However, they're not going to have any desire for food. Why? Because they will know that their regathering is just days away, and all they're going to want to do, all we're going to want to do is worship. Worship, worship, worship. All right? They will have freedom to move around, as there will be the light of Allah Hayam in their homes. Yet they will have no desire to eat or drink, because they will understand the meaning of this event and will continue to walk in complete obedience to Allah Hayam when He leads them in this extreme fast. He's going to lead us into an extreme fast. No food, no water. It's not necessary because we're not going to have a desire to eat or drink. And I will explain that in part 4. This part is looking at the defilement of the darkness. The rebels of the southern kingdom will be paralyzed by the darkness and the fear of it all. Why? Because there's darkness inside of them. There's darkness in them. So obviously the darkness around them is going to make them even more fearful. They will be tormented to the point where some will even die from the fear and the torment, yet their dead bodies will remain until the 3rd day. Oh yeah, there are going to be a lot of deaths on this earth. When Allah Hayam will cause the earth to open her mouth to swallow them up. And that will happen at the ending of the 3 days of darkness, when the earth begins to shake and the heavens begin to shake because Hamashiach is coming down. No one wants to know what's really going on, you know. That's the thing. The way how Allah Hayam is going to bring all of this around, bring all of this about, people will not have a clue as to what's happening. They're going to know the earth is shaking, but they don't know that the earth is opening up its mouth and swallowing up these people, these dead bodies of these Negroes. No, they're not going to know that. Those that survive the torments will be struck dead before the ending of this event, meaning the 3 days of darkness, to be buried with the rest of the dead of their brethren when the earth opens up her mouth. Right? And this will all take place under the cover of the 3 days of darkness, because just before Hamashiach comes with his light, we know that there's going to be a shaking in the heavens and the earth and the sea roar and all that stuff, right? No one will be able to gloat over the demise of our fallen brethren, and that will include the devils and the demons, who will all be blinded by the darkness and paralyzed as well. They will not be able to speak, therefore all their demonic activities will cease for this period of time. So there goes that theory that everyone is talking about, that's talking about the 3 days of darkness, that is going to be a lot of demonic activity going on. No, absolutely not. It is not, because this darkness is not coming as a result of devils and demons, but it's coming as a result of Allah Hayam bringing judgment. This is the final judgment for the southern kingdom, but it's going to affect every person on this earth. Man, woman, and beast, including the devils. All right? Stop listening to these mystic people that this woman called Jehani. Stop listening to this woman's false prophecy. Hers was a false prophecy. Everything that she said, with the exception of the fact that there's going to be 3 days of darkness, that's the only honest thing that she said. Everything else is garbage, and throw it just where it belongs, in the garbage. This is Allah Hayam's way of dealing with his people. He did it in the days of Matzah with our forefathers when they were in Egypt, and this is him doing it again. Where do you see demons and devils were walking around in the 3 days of darkness during that time with our forefathers? Nowhere. So why would it happen like this now? No. Why would Allah Hayam want these devils and demons to come and torment his own people? He's going to do it himself. As a matter of fact, and I did say this in a previous study, he may allow 1 or 2 devils to do the tormenting, but they're not even going to know who they're tormenting. Right? They're going to be bound. All right? They're going to be bound. And they're going to be used. And then Allah Hayam is just going to, flick them away. Enough now. I'm going to destroy them. All right? But they're not even going to know who it was because they're going to be blind. He's not going to let them see what they're doing. All right? He's not going to let them see. Now this will be for the pleasure of the remnant who will be preparing for their regathering. So the darkness is going to be a pleasure for the remnant. Why? Because they're going to be dwelling in Allah Hayam's light, His glory. Now we must consider what will happen to the rest of the inhabitants of the earth. They will be paralyzed by the darkness, and also everything is paralyzed, like the electricity, water, internet, everything is consumed by this darkness. When the Father began to show me this, I said, oh my, that's why there's not going to be any electricity. You can't turn on the light because, first of all, the light is going to be paralyzed. The artificial light is going to be paralyzed. If he shut off the natural light, like the sun, the moon, and the stars, what do you think about the electricity? Huh? And candles. You don't think that that he can shut those off too? Oh yeah. And the water? Because there'll be nothing moving. Yes, at the beginning of the 3 days of darkness, and you had the portents that were giving us the signs that something is coming. After that, the 3 days of darkness come, the darkness consumes everything. It engulfs everything. You're not even going to hear a cricket. No wind moving, no nothing, no birds, nothing. Nothing will move. Complete stillness. And that's going to rattle a lot of people because we live in a world where it's noisy. Everywhere you go is noise. Even when you go in the country, you hear the crickets chirping or whistling, whatever they do, rubbing their feet. All right? Everywhere you go, you hear a noise. Dogs barking in the distance. All right? Everywhere you go, you hear noise. You're in your house, you're living in the country, but you got the refrigerator humming in the background. But imagine a world that is so still and so quiet and blacker than black. So dark that you can feel it. Can't move, you're paralyzed, and then the fear of it all. This was going to happen to the people, and that's going to have an effect on people. A lot of people aren't going to be able to handle it. They're going to have heart attacks, strokes, what have you. What about the people in the hospitals on life support? What about the people in the hospital that needs attending to? Doctors can't move. Nurses can't move. All the machinery that they're hooked up to, off. It's gone off. All these things are going to happen, and it's going to bring about a lot of death. A lot of deaths. So let's carry on here. The darkness will descend quickly from the heavens to cover the entire earth. And because they are unable to move, they will have to remain exactly where they are. Now ask yourself these questions. Will they hunger? Will they get hungry? Well, if you can't move, you can't even see your hand to touch your face. How are you going to find your way anywhere to get food? Same thing with thirsty. You're going to be thirsty. They're going to be thirsty. Can't see, can't move, can't get anything. You got to stay exactly where you are. Will they relieve themselves just where they are? That's another thing to consider. I didn't think about it until the Father explained it to me. He said, do you think they're going to hold their bowels and their bladders for those 3 days and 3 nights? The only people that will not have a desire to relieve themselves will be the ones dwelling in the light. And that's the remnant. Sorry to get into this kind of conversation, but this is all about defilement here. And there's a reason why Allah Hayam is going to do this to the inhabitants on the earth. So they're going to have to relieve themselves exactly where they are. Let's read on. This is where this study will help to understand that the 3 days of darkness will also have a negative effect on the other inhabitants other than the fear and the paralysis of the darkness. Like I said, my focus was on the southern kingdom, the righteous remnant, and yes, a little bit about the rebels. But I wanted to know how this was going to play out for our brethren. Didn't really think about the rest of the inhabitants until now. Until now. Yes, they will hunger as they will not be able to eat for 3 days. You know how hungry these people are going to be? Extremely hungry. Yes, they will thirst as they will not be able to drink anything for 3 days. And yes, they will have to relieve themselves just where they are, whether sitting, standing, or lying down. It will create such a stink of defilement to reflect the great defilement that is on the earth due to wickedness. This is what the Father is going to do. He's done it before. Don't say that the Father is not going to do this. He's not going to protect or preserve anyone that is not His. He's not. This is to send a clear message to every inhabitant on the earth that as you smell your own stink, I can smell it even worse because of your wickedness. All right? This is sending a loud message to the people on the earth. Clean up yourselves, clean up your act. For generations now, there has been great wickedness upon the earth, and lately it has increased exponentially. Just look around you. The rainbow people, they're doing the dog, literally and figuratively. Doing the dog. And they're permitted to. They're permitted to do whatever they want to do. And now they're attacking the little kiddies. Dragging the little kiddies into their mess. Into their wickedness. Teaching them wickedness. I just watched a video yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Of this young teenager that was born a girl. But for some reason, as she was going through the change, she was a teenager, young teenager, maybe 12, about 12, yes. So her body was going through the changes. And she was uncomfortable with the changes. And she told her parents, and the parents went to find help, went to psychiatrists and psychologists. You know what? Here's the problem. You see, if they were poor, they wouldn't be able to take her anywhere. Right? But because these people are like middle class people that got a couple of dollars, they can go and take their children to psychologists and psychiatrists to tell them lies. And that's exactly what happened. Because they told them lies. They told her that she was suffering from gender dysphoria, something like some craziness, right? And they encouraged the parents to put her through with the blockers first, and then when she turned 13, then to put her on the male hormone. All right, that's what they did. And she said yes, her voice changed. And then they went one step further. I can't remember how old she was when they did this, but they cut off her bits because she was starting to develop, bumps on her chest. I'm trying to use words that the algorithm would not pick up. So forgive me. I'm not trying to be crazy here. I'm just trying to find alternative words that the algorithm would not pick up. So if you hear me saying like bumps on her chest, you know what I'm talking about. It's a female. We have bumps on our chest. You see the things, there's no freedom of speech, right? Anyways, she went and got those cut off. And now at 18 years old, because you know what she said? She was told that once she does this transformation, that she'll be happy. She will find happiness. And she said, when I realize after all these things that I've done to myself, and I'm still confused, I'm still unhappy. And then it dawned on her what she did. She's trying to revert back, but it's too late. She said because she did it as she was now entering into that time of change, it has permanently um it has permanently changed her, right? So she's living with regret. She's like, I would never be able to breastfeed a baby or blah blah blah, all these different things. She's living with regret. She said, I don't really blame my parents because they went to the professionals for advice and this is what they told her to do and she just did it. But I blame her parents too, because you can't be so ignorant that you give birth to a girl and a doctor come and tell you that that's the reason why she's unhappy is because she's the wrong gender. You got to be as foolish as a ram goat to believe that nonsense. Right? And that's the problem with parents. Problem with people, they put too much trust in the people in lab coats. You can't put your trust in nobody else but Allah. But like I said, if there was some poor folks who don't have 2 dimes to rub together or 2 pennies to rub together, they will not have gotten that advice and have done these things. All those things cost money. All right? Even if they have insurance, it still costs money at the end of the day. So I mean that they got money. At least I got a few dollars more than most people. Right? For you to financially support this nonsense. And now she's pleading with her representative to stop this nonsense, right? I'm like, yeah, nah, it's going to carry on because the right powers, the right people are in place to carry this on, right? They're transforming the people. They want people to be transformed into 2 images, either they want people to be transformed into a hybrid. So either hybrid with artificial intelligence, where you're part machine and part human, or you change who you were born as. All right? They don't care which one you choose, as long as you choose one of those two. Right? Because when you change the image of who you were born as, right? They know there's no going back to that, especially when you start cutting and you start taking things. There's no way you can go back. And a lot of these people, they commit suicide. A lot of them do. Because how are you going to find happiness now in a body that you're trapped in, a body that is neither here nor there? How are you going to find happiness like that? You're already unhappy to begin with, but to think of all the bad things that you've done to yourself, how are you going to find happiness? You can't. Anyway, let's move on. It will continue to do so as the Satans on the earth are bringing about their demonic agendas. This is part of their demonic agenda, to transform people until Allah brings it all to an end. However, during these 3 days of darkness, people will experience their own defilement and that of their neighbors, which ought to make an impression upon them. The stench that is going to be on people's nostrils. So let me add this too, right? I don't know if maybe I have it in another area. Yeah, I have it here in next paragraph, so I'm not going to say it because I'm going to be repeating myself. So people will experience their own defilement and that of their neighbors, which ought to make an impression upon them. Hey, I smell bad. Everywhere I turn, it smells bad. It smells awful. All right. If they realize how defiled they are physically, then maybe they may realize that they are also defiled spiritually and may want to do something about it, like repent. Remember, a lot of these people are worshiping other gods. This would be the perfect time for them to call on their gods to help them out of this situation. But when they realize that their gods aren't going to do anything for them, now they have to question why. Why did my God did not help me in this? Why didn't Jesus help me in this situation? All right? And if that does not wake up people, then nothing else will. Nothing else will. In fact, we know that when the different judgments, the rest of the judgments come, people are still going to persist to being wicked. All right? Instead of repenting, they're going to insist and persist to be wicked. Yet only the northern kingdom would have these kinds of thoughts, as the Gentile nations will remain in their sin, hoping for their rapture to quickly take place to rescue them. There will be one or two Gentiles that will kind of have a light bulb moment, like, hey, this Jesus that I used to worship, he's not helping me. Instead of rapturing me out of this place, I'm still here and I'm suffering. One or two of them will wake up. Oh yeah. One or two of them will wake up. Because, like I said, some of the Gentiles will come in to our fold. All right? Another thing to understand, that like the rebels of the southern kingdom that will succumb to death during the 3 days of darkness, that some of the inhabitants of the earth will do the same as well. So remember, I talked about those people in the hospitals that are on life support, people that are dependent, they're waiting for their surgery or they were in surgery. How are they going to, I'm telling you, just thinking about it. You're in surgery and all of a sudden everything's gone black. You can't do anything, that person's dead. And those surgeons and nurses and what have you, doctors that are in the room with that dead, rotten body. Okay. Some of the Gentiles who will see the darkness and feel its paralyzing power will fear greatly, where they will die. However, the earth will not swallow them up at the end of this event. And that's another thing too. Some of the Gentiles are going to die. Right? They are going to die. But they're not going to be swallowed up at the end of the 3 days of darkness. Their own will have to bury them, and so their corpses will remain even amongst them that are not dead, adding to their defilement, the stench of their rotten corpse after 3 days. After 3 days, maybe even after 2 days. Maybe some died on the last day. There's all kinds of defilement that will occur. A lot of stench that will be released on the earth because of the wickedness that is upon the earth. So let's look at Matthew chapter 8 verse 21. And another of his disciples said unto him, Adawan, meaning master, suffer me first to go and bury my father. But Yahushua said unto them, follow me and let the dead bury their dead. All right, so the people of the earth are going to have to bury their dead. They're the dead burying their dead. Leviticus chapter 18 verse 24, defile not you yourselves in any of these things. So now here's the reason why I talk about the wickedness upon the earth and why Al-Hayam is going to defile every single thing on this earth with the stench of it all. Who is not being tormented, speaking of the southern kingdom, will be facing death and defilement. For in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you, and the land is defiled. Therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomits out her inhabitants. Verse 26. You shall therefore keep my statutes and my judgments, and shall not commit any of these abominations, neither any of your own nation, nor any stranger that sojourns among you. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled. So even though this has to do with the 12 tribes of Yashraal, where Allah Hayam, Yahweh, is warning our people to not commit any of the abominations of the other nations around you. I did not go into detail. In fact, no, I didn't write out the actual verses of these abominations, but I kind of did a short version of it. All right, which is in the next paragraph. So all these abominations were done, and that's why Al Hayam caused the land to spew out the inhabitants of the earth, of the land, and then the 12 tribes went in and took that land. That's the land of Yashra'al. These are the bad things that the wicked things that these people were doing that made Al Hayam angry. Now, just because these nations don't belong to him is not an excuse to commit abominations, to do wickedness. All right. Verse 27. For all these abominations have the men of the land done, which were before you, and the land is defiled, that the land spew not you out also when you defile it, as it spewed out the nations that were before you. For whosoever shall commit any of these abominations, even the soul that commit them, shall be cut off from among their people. Therefore shall you keep my ordinance, that you commit not any one of the abominable customs which were committed before you, and that you defile not yourselves therein. I am Yahweh Allah Hayak, your Allah Hayam. Allah Hayam was speaking to the 12 tribes of Yashra'al when he warned our forefathers not to commit the same abominations as the other nations around them. Yet they did not listen. And here we are today, their offspring, also being thrust out of our own land, just like they were. They were thrust out of the land. We have never seen our own land. We're still living in the lands of our captivity because of the abominations that our forefathers did. Yes, they worship other gods and idols, and they sacrifice to these gods. They even sacrifice their own babies. But there were some other abominations that they did. So let's look at them. Let's look at a few of them. The standard of living in righteousness for Habanai ol Yashra'al, that's the children of Yashra'al, is the same for the inhabitants on the earth. However, because Allah Hayam is not concerning himself with the Gentiles as yet, he draws them away from him for them to do just what they love doing, which is wickedness. Allah Hayam has caused the Gentile nations on the earth to worship the devils in whatever forms they appear unto them, because he's not ready to deal with them just yet. He knows their hearts, that they are wicked, and every abomination that pops into their minds, they will perform. Yet at the same time, as they're going through the worst time that they will ever see on this earth, a remnant of them will awaken from their stupor to return or to turn to Allah Hayam and worship him. So let's look at Debarayam chapter 4 verse 19. We didn't get to the list yet, but the list is coming up. We just want to establish something here. That Allah Hayam gave the sun, moon, and stars to these people to worship. All these fallen angels, he gave them to worship. They call them by many different names. Al-Hayam gave them to worship. Why? Because he's not interested in those people. Dubarayam, the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 4, verse 19. And lest you lift up your eyes unto heaven, and when you see the sun and the moon and the stars, even all the hosts of heaven, should be driven to worship them and serve them. That's supposed to be serve, which Allah, Yahweh Allah has divided unto all nations under the whole heaven. So Allah has given unto all the nations under the whole heavens the sun, moon, and stars, and the hosts of heaven. Who are the hosts of heaven? The fallen angels. Verse 20. But Yahweh has taken you, this is the Habanai Ol Yashwa'al, and brought you out of the iron furnace, a place that is hot and hard, even out of Matzarayam, that's Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as you are this day. So we see even in the word that Masha is speaking to the 12 tribes, telling them that don't go worshiping the sun, moon, and stars. Don't go worshiping the fallen angels, because Al-Hayam, he is the one we ought to be worshiping. Right? He's the one who brought us out, and he's the one that we ought to be serving. Al-Hayam has given the sun, moon, and stars to the Gentile nations to worship. He also gave them the devils as the fallen hosts of heaven to worship. Hence the reason why they are inherently wicked and always seeking to fulfill their evil thoughts, because they're led by these fallen angels to do these things. And they call the fallen angels by all kinds of fancy names, and they think that they're serving the Creator, but they're not. They're serving a created being that pretends that he is or they are the Creator. They are driven like manic people, and they cannot help themselves. And I'm speaking of the Gentile nations. They can't help themselves. They can't help being wicked. You just see some of the wicked things that these people get up to. All right? As they lack Rawak ol Alahayam, and that is Harawak ol Alahayam is the spirit of Alahayam. They don't have the spirit of Alahayam. They don't have Rawak ol Amath. They don't have Rawak HaKadash. It's the same person. Rawak HaKadash is meant only for the 12 tribes of Yashwa'al. That is, if they repent and return to Alahayam. So if you're of the 12 tribes, and you're walking like a Gentile and worshiping other gods, you're not going to have Ruach HaKadash guiding you. He cannot dwell in a temple that is already occupied. First of all, it is defiled by these other gods, so he's not coming in. He will warn you to turn away from your wicked ways and repent. But at a point of time, he will stop speaking to you, start speaking to your heart. Let's see where he left off. He will give his ruach freely to his redeemed. All other peoples will be without him until they have been approved at the end of the age. So the Gentile nations, after the 1,000-year reign, they will not receive Harawak. They will not receive the spirit of Alahayam. Because even during the 1,000-year reign, they're still being sifted. They're still being proved by Alahayam. And we know how many of them are going to turn away from Alahayam, because they're going to join with Gadriel, and they're going to be part of his armies that will come against Hamashiach and his saints in the land. We see that. So he's not going to give them his ruach till after they've passed all the tests that he's going to give to them. Remember what he said? Give not that which is holy unto dogs, and don't cast your pearls to swine. And who were the dogs and who are the dogs and who are the swine? Anyone that is not in covenant with Allah Hayam. You're both a dog and a swine. All right. No one will be spared the defilement that is coming as a result of the 3 days of darkness. Only the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom. That's what I'm saying. There's always more to uncover when it comes to this 3 days of darkness. You know, there's some out there teaching, all you got to do is have candles and have food for 3 days and water for 3 days and plastic bags at your window and wait it out. My goodness, if it was only that simple, if it was only that easy, don't go outside because you'll be struck down by the demons. If only it was that simple. No, Allah Hayam is going to show his might even in the 3 days of darkness. They'll be dwelling in the light of Allah Hayam. This is the remnant, the righteous remnant of the southern kingdom. They'll be dwelling in the light of Allah Hayam, and like anyone that we have known who dwelt in his presence, they will experience a difference in their bodily requirements, meaning no need for food or water or rest or even bathroom breaks. Do you know that? Masha went up to the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Did he sleep any of those days? Did he eat? Did he drink? Did he relieve himself? No, he was in the presence of Almighty Allah Hayam, Shaddai Allah Hayam. And when you're in the presence of Hashaddai, your body ceased to function the way how it normally would. Because you're in the divine presence of Allah Hayam. That's why the righteous remnant, they'll be living in a pristine, clean home. There'll be no stench anywhere. There'll be no stenches. All right? Everything is going to be clean, and you're going to, wait till you watch parts 4 and 5. You're going to see some awesome stuff. So let's read on. We will see in the next 2 studies why this will happen for the remnant. It's going to be an awesome time for the remnant, not for the rest of the people. That's for sure. Now, the completion of the 3 days of darkness and the subsequent return of Hamashiach will be the catalyst to awaken the northern kingdom as to their true identity. After experiencing their defilement like nothing they have ever experienced before, many of them will awaken. Unfortunately, only a remnant will make it into our land. Yet it will all begin with the 3 days of darkness to provoke them to righteousness after realizing that the gods which they served did nothing for them during this defiling time of their lives. They're going to be so upset. They call on Jesus. They call on Yeshua. They call on Elohim. Those are the ones that claim that they're in Judaism. They call on God. They call on Lord. They call on whatever the gods that they serve. And not a word. Total silence. You can't even hear crickets then. Right? Total silence. Got to suffer through it all. The stench and the fear of it all. And if this doesn't wake them up to the reality of who they're serving, then nothing else will. All right. Not to mention their gods did nothing to help them when the darkness and the fear paralyzed them. But despite how obvious it is that idols cannot do anything for anyone, and people do it all for them, like carrying them from place to place, keeping them clean, and even protecting them from damage, yet this sobering, rational thought will never occur to those who are unrepentant, and they will still want to carry on with serving their gods. And that's the one thing that our forefather Abraham realized. He already had a relationship with Allah Hayam somewhat, because he was taught by Nah. He was raised by Nah and Sham, right? Because when his father hid him, and this is all in the Apocrypha, and this is a brief history. This is how Abraham came into the knowledge of Alahayam. But when he went back home, where his father and his mother and all his other relatives lived, and he realized that his father would carve out of wood this god, and he will move it here and there, and if it falls into the fire, it burnt, it can't even get itself out. And he said, but father, first of all, how can you worship something that you make with your own hands? How can you worship something that can't help itself out of the fire? If it falls down, you have to pick it up and move it. How can you worship something like that? How can you call that a god? His father's like, just do as I say and not as I. His father didn't really have an answer. That was my answer. But that was a thought in Abraham's mind because he already had the knowledge of Alahayam, who is creator, who made all things, and no one makes anything for him. No one can outthink him, outplan him, outbeat him. No one can do anything beyond him. Everyone is beneath him. All right? That is creator. That is Alahayam. Okay. So let's see where he left off. So this was a sobering, this should be a sobering thought for us when the gods that, well, not us, for people who are worshiping pagan gods, it should be a sobering thought that, hey, wait a minute, I got a statue of Buddha and I gotta go dust him and rinse him off and dry him and put him out there and put him there, move him here. How about the Jesus people? Call on Jesus, 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 and nothing happens. All right. That should be the one thing to wake people up after or during these 3 days of darkness, and even afterwards when they see the face of Hamashiach in the sky, in the clouds. Has there ever been any other God that can do something like that? No. And then to see the chariots moving all over the earth. Has any other God done anything like this? Never. You see spaceships, but that's Nephilim technology. And that works off technology. And as soon as the great earthquake comes in seal number 6, that's done. It's all going to be expensive garbage. All right, let's move on. All these defilements may seem unbelievable to many people because they're following fables instead of the truth. Here's the truth. When Alahayam struck Matsarayam with plagues, it too was not pretty. There were miraculous events and even events that defiled the people of Matsarayam, including Parao. So let us reflect on their times of defilement. So let's go through some scriptures so that you can see for yourself that when Alahayam does something, he does it to prove that he is Hashaddai, the Almighty One, Ol Yashra'al, of Yashra'al. Shamawath, chapter 7, verse 17. That's the book of Exodus, chapter 7, verse 17. Thus said Yahweh, in this you shall know that I am Yahweh. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in my hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. And the fish that is in the river shall die, and the river shall stink. And Matsarayam shall loathe to drink of the water of the river. That's where they drank their water. That's where they got the water to cook and drink from the river of Matsarayam. That would be the Nile River. All right. And the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank. And Matsarayam could not drink of the water of the river. And there was blood throughout all the land of Matsarayam. Can you imagine the smell, the stench of it all? All right. Let's look at Shamawath chapter 8, verse 12. And Masha and Ahawaram went out from Parao, and Masha cried unto Yahweh because of the frogs which he had brought against Parao. They had frogs everywhere. They had frogs in their bed, frogs, frogs appearing everywhere inside their homes. And listen, there were frogs everywhere. I would not want to be in Egypt at that time. Ugh. Oh my goodness. Verse 13, and Yahweh did according to the word of Masha, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields, and they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. So I don't mean to be laughing at these people, but my goodness, like the frogs was, that was a curse that came upon the land, came upon the people as well. And even after the curse was the curse had ended, the people had to gather up the frogs in heaps. And what happened to the frogs? They rotted. And they had the place stinking. All right? Drop down to verse 24 of the same chapter 8. And Yahweh did so, and there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Parao, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Matzarayam. The land was corrupted, decayed, spoiled, gone to ruin by reason of the swarm of flies. And before the flies, there were the lice. So these people had to deal with lice and flies and the stink of the frogs, right? I'm telling you. My goodness. Shamawath chapter 9 verse 13. And Yahweh said unto Masha, rise up early in the morning and stand before Parao and say unto him, thus said Yahweh al-Hayam of Ha'obarayam. That's in place of Hebrews. All right. We are not Hebrews. That's not our word. Okay. Let my people go that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon your heart, and upon your servants, and upon your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. This is the reason why Allah is going to bring not only the 3 days of darkness, but has been already, because some of the seals have been opened up to seal number 4. And he's going to bring all the rest of the seals, the trumpet judgments, and the vials to show the inhabitants on the earth this very same thing. Just like what he did with Parao. Let me read it again. Verse 14. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon your heart and upon your servants and upon your people, that you may know that there is none like me in all the earth. So Parao and all these other kings and rulers of the earth, they tried to establish themselves to be like gods, to be higher than Allah. And that's why he's got to bring the curses. Verse 15. For now I will stretch out my hand that I may smite you and your people with pestilence, and you shall be cut off from the earth. So he's telling Parao, I'm going to kill you. Here's what else he says to him. Verse 16. And in very deed of this cause have I raised you up, for to show you my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. So this is the very reason why he allowed Parao to take his seat as Parao, to show him and his people who Allah really is. You see all these devils that are ruling this earth? You think if Allah didn't want them in their place, in the place where they're sitting, in the seat where they're sitting, that he would not remove them? No. Allah allowed them to take their seat, whatever seat they're in governments or in the court system, wherever they are, ruling over the inhabitants of the earth. Allah Hayam has given them that power, that ability. Why? Because he wants to pass judgment on them. And he's using them to help sift out the peoples on the earth. Verse 17. As yet exalted you yourself against my people, that you will not let them go. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened by Allah Hayam. So even if he wanted to let them go, there was a part of him like, nope, you're staying. Or he will say yes, and then he'll change his mind. Let's go down to verse 24. So there was hail, and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Matzorayam since it became a nation. And the hail smote throughout all the land of Matzorayam, and all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field, and broke every tree of the field. And when he says smote, he means kill. So the hail killed man and beast. You think only the Passover was the only time that these people experienced death? No. No, thank you. Sorry if I blew into the microphone. I'm sorry. All right. Shamawath chapter 11 verse 4. And Masha said, Thus saith Yahweh, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Matzorayam, and all the firstborn in the land of Matzorayam shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry through all the land of Matzorayam, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it anymore. And that's only for Matzorayam, Egypt. But it's going to happen throughout the world. It's going to happen throughout the world. So you see how Allah Hayam brought stink and death to Matzorayam. And you're thinking to yourself, well, that's not going to happen in the 3 days of darkness. We're just going to be a little hungry and a little thirsty, and that's it. But no, absolutely not. There's going to be a lot more going on. Trust me. You may not have too much to come out of your bladder and wherever else. But it's going to be there look, you're in bed. You can't move out of your bed, so where are you going to put it? Right? Where will you put it? Where are you going to put it? And that's because of wickedness. That is because of wickedness. And imagine, oh my goodness, after the 3 days are over, and you got to do clean up. You got to start cleaning up this mess. You're going to have to burn some mattresses. You're going to have to burn some carpets. Oh yeah. It's not going to be a pleasant sight at all. It's not going to be pleasant. Okay. So let's look at Shamawath, chapter 12. This is still Exodus, verse 12. For I will pass through the land of Matzorayam this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Matzorayam, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Matzorayam I will execute judgment. I am Yahweh. So all the different things that he did were to smite, execute his judgment against the gods of Matzorayam. He was showing not only his people, but Pharaoh and his people, who's the greatest. He's the greatest. There's none like him. All the gods that they have had to be humbled beneath him. Humble themselves. And it's the same thing with this earth, on this earth, with the 3 days of darkness. When he brings it, it's going to humble the devils and the demons that these agents on the earth worship. But it's only going to harden their hearts. They're going to be like Pharaoh, because only death is their destination. The lake of fire is their destination. So he's going to harden their heart that they're not going to repent. They're going to do worse after all this is over. And that's why the beast number 7, the beast empire number 7, technology-based empire, as soon as the southern kingdom is gone, they're going to get ready to rise up along with the anti-Messiah. You see, they got to come with an answer as to what happened. And they're going to have all kinds of answers for what happened. All right? They're going to have a lot of answers. But go back to the word of Allah and you'll see the truth for yourself. Don't believe anything that comes out of these people's mouths. They're going to lie through their teeth. Allah defiled the king of Matsarayam, his servants, his people, his land, and even his gods. And he sent the plagues. And he will do it again to show the inhabitants on the earth that he is real and his power is real. And he will execute these 3 days of darkness to prove to them that their gods, which they worship, is nothing in comparison to him. Nothing. Because of all the wickedness that is upon this earth, driven by the gods which the inhabitants on this earth is serving or are serving, this event will show to those who belong to him his real might. So the northern kingdom, a lot of them are going to wake up. But unfortunately, a lot of the righteous remnant of the northern kingdom are going to perish in the war against the NWO, the 7th empire. That's the technology-based empire. All right. So let's read on. Even though in Leviticus chapter 18, verse 24, the scripture that I read that was meant for the 12 tribes of Yashraal, we're talking about where he was saying to the 12 tribes not to commit any abominations that they see the other nations are doing or were doing around them. He said, don't do it. Here's the reason why. Nevertheless, we can still glean what the abominations were that defiled the people. I am most certain that there's still the same abominations around today and much, 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 much more. Of course, there's much more. So let's see what these abominations are. So here are some of the things that Yahweh finds abominable. Now, sleeping with your near kin, a family member, like a father and a daughter, excuse me, brothers and sisters, mother and son. All right? And we're seeing this happening more and more. That's abomination. Son sleeping with the father's wife. Might not be his mother, but it's the father's wife. You're uncovering the skirt of the father. That's an abomination. A man that has a wife and he's sleeping with her mother or her sister. That's an abomination. All right? I know some people will say, but remember when, if you go back to the genealogy, that Adam and Hawa, they gave birth to daughters and sons and they married each other. But that's when the gene pool was pure. And Allah permitted that at that time. And then as they had more and more people on the earth, then people were marrying cousins. And then finally they were marrying, we're so distant. Really and truly, we're all related at one point or the other, but we're far apart in relation. So Allah is saying, no, we don't need to do that because the gene pool has been contaminated. And to do these kinds of things, they are an abomination to him. Because he set the rule. He set the law. All right? Sleeping with animals. That's called bestiality. Offering up your children to Moloch. However which way you want to look at it. And same gender relations. You know what I'm talking about. Now we can add in there changing our genome. Remember talking about hybrids, either flesh, man and AI, or man and woman and creature in as one body, in one body. Okay, yeah. Changing who we are, and especially who we are when we were born. That's another one too. Changing you're born one way and you change it to something else. Taking the mark of the beast, taking the toxin, and so many other abominations that have infiltrated and have become mainstream and accepted as the norm by society. And that's exactly what these devils do. They put it out there and they make light of these abominations on television. I remember many years ago, when this movie came out. Never watched it, will never watch it. Well, is that Brokeback Mountain thing? I don't want to call it by its full name, but you know what I'm talking about. And it was the first serious movie that portrayed two men in a relationship. And they were cowboys. And you see, they're trying to break down that stereotype of a cowboy being like a man's man. Yeah, well, these two were definitely men's men, right? And it was like a love story between these. I'm like, I've never watched it, never even seen the trailer, but I've heard people talking about it, not in detail about the story behind it, but that's what it is. Because previously, throughout the 80s, what Hollywood has been doing is desensitizing people for the rainbow people. Because when you see a rainbow person in a sitcom, they were always the funny, quirky, hysterical act, right? And people are like, oh, he's so funny. You got his little funny looking dog. I remember that one with Michael J. Fox. I can't remember the name of the movie that he was in. But, there was this one that looked like a Negro, right? But he had this dog and anyways. And there were just different sitcoms that came out with the rainbow people. There are at least one rainbow person in these sitcoms to desensitize the public that they are harmless, they're funny, they're quirky, they're colorful. There's nothing wrong with them. They're just a little different because they love the same as they are. There's nothing wrong with that. It's actually quite funny. And it could be fun. And, anyways. And then you have it expanded to, and when I say fun, I'm talking about their wickedness. To them, that's wickedness is their fun. All right? I'm not trying to promote anything. Okay. Then it expanded to, like I said, this movie. And then you start seeing, well, actually, even in the music industry, you start to see these androgynous type singers, and people fell in love with them because they became idols. You had the artist without a name, very androgynous, and then you had David Bowie and all the different ones, right? And people fell in love because the music was very intoxicating, and more desensitizing. And then, after that, then it started to blossom even more. This acceptance of the rainbow people, right? Till what we have today, where they're marching the streets saying, we're coming after your children. So no, they're not funny and colorful and quirky anymore, but they're actually quite wicked. Not all of them, because there are a couple of them, I've actually saw this, that said, what do children have to do with this business? I mean, they're still they're still in the rainbow community, but they're standing up for the children. But then again, there's always control opposition, so you don't even know which side these people really on, whether they're really truthful or not. And I don't really give ear to these people, because there is such a thing as control opposition, where you may have someone who is not exactly the kind of person that you like, but they are speaking against the powers that be. And we see that with Elon, that Musk guy, and we see it with that other guy, I forgot his name. Joe something. They're always coming out with truth and coming out against the powers that be. But we know that they are the control opposition. There must be a control opposition, because this is how the powers that be control the information that you receive, and they control you through that information. Don't believe any of these people, even if they're coming out against what is going on. Don't believe them. They're all part. You see a coin? If you look at a coin has two sides, right? That's exactly who these people are. There's evil, and there are two sides to this evil, right? It's called control opposition. Just like the tree of knowledge of good and evil, you have the good on one side and the evil on the other side, but the good is still evil. And that's how these people operate. They try to be like the good guys, but they're just as wicked and evil as the evil people on the other side. They're all part of the same clan. They're all part of the same plan. Because if they were not, they would not have what they have right now. They're given the toys, and they're given the position and the money to do the things that they're doing. They didn't get that from hard work. They get that from working for the devil. They're in the devil's back pocket. And even though they're playing the good guy, they're actually, to me, they're worse than the evil guys, because they're pretending to be nice. They're pretending to be good guys. Anyways, let's move on. So no wonder the 3 days of darkness will have a major impact on every living thing on this earth. For the righteous, there will be glorious days, but for all else, a time of great despair. And that's the ending of this particular study. And I felt I had to do it. I had to do it. Because it's going to prepare you now for the next two studies. The first one, part 4, is called Preparing for the Darkness, and part 5, Preparing for Our Regathering. Right? And they're both, to me, phenomenal. It's like when Allah Hayam really gives you knowledge, it is something to behold. All right? But I had to do this because I really wanted to go into deeper detail as to what else is going to be happening. I was trying to focus on the southern kingdom, and he said, I want you to focus on everything. Everything that's going to be going on all at once. Don't just focus on the southern kingdom, but focus on all the things that are going to be happening during those 3 days of darkness, because there's going to be a lot of things going on, and people need to know. They need to know. It's not as simple as just darkness and you turn on your candle or turn on your torchlight. No. It's going to be a grievous time for those who are not going to be regathered. And that's where the defilement is going to come in, from the stench and the act of defiling yourself. All right? Okay. So that's the ending of part 3 continued. I will release the 2 after this to complete this series. This amazing study. Oh, I am so blessed by it. I hope you are too. And we're going to end this all with the Barayam, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 6, verse 24 to 26. The blessing for Yashra'al. Yabarakak Yahweh, wa Yashamarak. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. Ya'ar Yahweh panayo alayak wa yachanak. May Yahweh cause his face to shine upon you and have favor upon you. Yasha'a Yahweh panayo alayak wa yasham lak shalawah. May Yahweh cause his face to, may Yahweh lift up his face upon you and give you peace. And I say, Shalom, Shalom. All praises to the Most High. Abba Yah.